Well, hello, everybody. Excited for the Hard Money podcast with Bill Barnett, a good friend. Bill and I have known each other over a decade. I look to Bill as one of the first thought leaders, one of the first mentors in the real estate training, real estate investing, real estate education industry that I think I ever met in my entire history. I think it was 14 to 15 years ago we met.
Yeah.
And Bill is someone I kind of followed for many years as I modeled, my business and built my business and have able to, achieve the things that I've been able to achieve. I know you guys are familiar with that stuff, but I want you to be familiar with what Bill's done. I mean, the guy is incredible, and I can't wait for him to share with you. So what's happening, Bill?
How you doing, man? Great seeing you again and catching up. Always good to do that and hear what's happening out in on the left coast. And so glad that you're surviving out there. And I'm in God's country, so I'm good here in Texas. So a lot of great things going on. Still doing the real estate day in day out. Still have the brokerage firm. We're going into our 12th year with the brokerage firm, and just still doing flips and got a guaranteed money program that I've been doing for Kevin and I have been doing for about a year and a half now. That is just doing incredibly well. So uh,
Well, one of the
everything
things
real
I
estate, brother.
one of the things I've always loved about Bill, right? Everybody is just like he's very accessible, right? He's very open minded, but he's not, gonna take things lightly. Like when it comes to making decisions or investments or different things. And so I always appreciated over the years that like when I asked him this or I asked for help with this or I looked to this, right? And I love that a part about it. You're right. Bill wrote the book, Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich, right? And then he wrote the second, Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich, right? And they're both,
Yep.
extremely successful, best-selling books. And, another one is, about communication and just different things Bill's done over the years where, he's been able to achieve these high levels. But I look at, you look at a bio, right? And he's, president of this and on this board of this nonprofit and on this successful. And we'll talk about some of those, different things. But the amazing part is, what I love is you're either on fire or you're not on fire, right? And in life, it's a choice. It's a choice. And
Yeah,
so, Bill, I just
absolutely.
want to ask you a question, right? That conscious is, at this point in your life, I know you've been on fire. I know we all run through cycles. We run through ups and downs in
Yep.
life, right? Talk
Yep.
about that concept of just, being on fire as an entrepreneur, right? Being able to go through each hurdle, each door, each window that you have to, fly through to be successful. Talk about that.
Well, recently Elon Musk was doing an interview, and he had a bunch of entrepreneurs in the room, and they started a Q&A session. And one of the entrepreneurs asked him, he said, I want you to give me your tip for staying motivated. Tell me something that I can use to stay motivated. And I cracked up when I heard the answer, because Musk said, if I need to motivate you as an entrepreneur, you're in the wrong business. And so part of being an entrepreneur, I've been in television for a while. I did radio for 7 years, all about real estate, and is that creative. Yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, you have a creative spirit about you. Now, it may be something like what we're doing on the podcast. It may be radio. It may be TV. But it also, I see the creative side just in the real estate, in the properties. I love. I was over at a rehab this morning, redesigning a bathroom. Just, it's something that I still do. I'm going into my 30th year in investing, and I still do flips. I still love uh, tr- tromping around in these trashed out old houses and sharing with my contractors, this is what it should look like when we're done with it. And it's an expressive, creative outlet in being able to do that. And that's what helps keep you on fire. So you got to have something that really fulfills you inside. Now, you got to understand why. Why are you doing this? For me, I got three boys. My baby's 15 years old now. He's a sophomore in high school. I've got one that's a sophomore. I'm embarrassed to say this, and you'll wonder why I didn't raise him better, but I have a sophomore in Oklahoma. Um, and then I have a 29-year-old. So, you have to have the reasons why. And our kids are always a good reason why. But setting the example and being the model and showing them, and my oldest is in business for himself, which I'm thrilled about. And it's just one of those things that my dad was an entrepreneur to the core. Um, he didn't see himself the way I saw him. He had a job much of his life, but he also had a chain of shoe stores as I was growing up, and always did stuff on the side, including seller financing. He did seller financing on cars, which is where I learned that principle and applied it to real estate. But it's you just have to find what fulfills you. Tony Robbins says, everybody in life, we are constantly we're growing or we're dying. And if you don't have something that keeps you on fire, then you're dying. And I've had people ask me when I plan on retiring, and I'm like, wow, when they lower me in the hole, you can count me retired, but I plan on owning that one too.
Yeah, like for me, I don't typically worry about that as much as like a timing standpoint, right? I know that like my boys are 4 and 5, and so I look at 10 to 15, 15 to 18. I look at different phases of their life and where I want to be from a freedom standpoint, right? To be able to be impactful, be a part of their lives. But the greatest impact you can make on their lives is to lead by example, right? Lead by lead by your word, lead by your mission, lead by your life. For me, it's interesting. I'm very like motivation is something I've never, it's never been a conversation for me, right? I don't think about motivation, right? I think about what's next. And I think that kind of goes in alignment with what Elon was saying there. For me, I have this vision of my business of, like, here's how we're going to get to become $1 billion fund, right? That's the vision for us, is to become $1 billion REIT. That's the phases we're at, and, we're, I was just actually doing, first time in almost a year where I did, a full analysis of our portfolio and like where we've gotten to and those kind of things. And, we've crossed, we're closing in on that $80 million mark in portfolio, and I was just like, holy shit. Right. But at the same time, I know where the mission and the goal is, and so but then I let go because I'm not worried, because if all you do is focus on the end, you'll get stuck in the middle, and so for me, I kind of let go of that. And then it's the next, and I have this vision of what I want everything to look like. And so I spent a great part of my life pulling in pieces and resources to create that vision. Right. And so that's, one of those amazing things that we do. Right. And your dogs agree with me.
My alarm system just went off. Right. I have a 130-pound shepherd sitting over there.
Wow. So, that's great.
She's a big girl. Hey.
My dog would want to fight with yours, but she's like a 15-pound miniature golden retriever. She might lose. But Texans like to believe that, though, right? So they like to believe, as Californians, we lose, when it comes to those things.
You're about to enter this phase with your boys being 4 and 5. You're getting into the age where they're going to start, if they haven't already, they're going to start playing organized sports. Mm-hmm. And man, I got to tell you, I coached for 9 years. Many of those years, I coached 4 teams a year with them, and just one of the greatest times of my life. There was so much going on business-wise, but most of the things that I remember through those years, I have to stop and think about what was happening business-wise during that time, because the things that pop up are the things that I did, what the boys did. And so I'm envious of you and proud for you and proud of you. You're going to have an absolute blast. You're going to love it. And whatever it is that they want to do, it may not be baseball. I hope it is.
Oh my gosh, I hope it is.
But, whatever it is, you're going to be thrilled with it, and you'll do a great job with them. And it's so much fun. It is just a hoot. So
it's funny. Like I know business wise, there's generational knowledge being passed down, right? Literally, my 4-year-old found a $5 bill like in the house somewhere, and he came and gave it to me. He said, "Daddy, buy me a house and make me money," right? And I just kind of laughed, right? So I know that stuff is automatic, but I have this baseball generational knowledge because I coached University of San Francisco and Long Beach and many years and played a high level of baseball, but that part of generational knowledge, I want to pass down on them. But I don't want to beat them over the head with it, and I want them to want it, right? And so I did actually. We have it's crazy. We had no basically for my wife's mother, right? No grandkids 6 years ago, and now there are 4 boys all within a year of each other. And so obviously I'll take them, and I did baseball with them hardcore for 6 months, twice a week, right? And then I gave them a break because I was like, I need them to come back and ask me that they want to do it again versus compensate. But anyways, I like that generational knowledge I want to give to them, because I know the business at this point, the business is going to be automatic, And so, but your boys, how is that journey with the generational part of it? Like, did different son, like you have three different sons, right? Did different sons, like, can you see one really wanting to follow dad's steps and two not wanting to, or kind of wanting to follow but wanting their own thing, or what is that like with the three of them?
None of them.
Yeah, not a
None of
single
them.
one.
I have two older brothers, and I'm going through what my dad went through. So my two older brothers were already adults when my dad started his shoe business, and so he ended up with this chain of shoe stores throughout Alabama. And when I hit high school, I kind of grew up in that part of the business with dad. So as I was getting out of Bama, he was assuming that I wanted to take over the shoe business, and he was getting ready to retire, and he was going to sell them to me, and he was going to own or finance them for me, and it was just teed up like you wouldn't believe. And I had no interest whatsoever. I look back on that and crack up at how what a bad economic decision it was on my part.
What an
However,
opportunity that is, right? But
yeah,
you
yeah,
weren't
but
ready
I
yet.
had no interest in it whatsoever. And same thing with my boys. My oldest has a house and has bought it, gutted it, rebuilt it. It's fabulous, and so I'm very proud of that. And he says he learned a lot of that from me, but no interest in going into real estate. And the younger two, my middle in Oklahoma, he's in film, and which is a great uh, love of mine growing up. I've been in a few movies and a few TV shows and had a TV show. And so he is in film, and he won as a freshman. And last year he entered some stuff and got some acclaim. But as a senior in high school, he won two statewide competitions here. One had 3,000 entries in it. He won it. And the other one that he entered, they only recognized 10 people. They didn't have a winner, but they took 10 people out, and they had several hundred entries, and he was one of the 10. And guy just has a phenomenal knack. And I feel like I'm pretty knowledgeable film. I know a lot of people that are fairly high up in the film industry, and several of them used to work for me, which is crazy. But this guy watches a movie and just sees stuff that I would never see. We'll talk about it, and my mouth is hanging open as his understanding of the visual medium. So, you look at it, you go, hey, whatever it is that they want to do, I want to help them. I would love it I would have loved if he was going to Bama. He had talked about going to Bama a little bit his senior year and actually applied and was accepted. And I was just ecstatic. And then he changed his mind. So those things happen, and you're happy for him, you're proud for him, you want to be there, and you want to guide them when you can and when they ask for it. And so there's nothing more impactful than that we can have. So our personal relationship with God is the single most important thing that we have. Then that translating through how we live our life on a daily basis and how it impacts our kids is the next thing. And I've told them, I said, don't look at your mom and I, look at what is truth. And what is truth is the single most important thing that you can do. And as you grow up and get married, now, none of them are married yet. So obviously no kids for me, but no grandkids. And I'm okay with that at this moment. But it's like, hey, the most important thing that you can do in your relationship is have a great relationship with your spouse. That's the most important thing you can do for your kids. And women are really do this. And I'm sure I'm going to step on some toes here, and hopefully you won't get too much hate mail. But, women have a tendency to put their kids before their marriage once they have children. And I cautioned my ex about that, and so yes, ex about that, and I have friends that I talk to about that. I'm like, hey, yeah, you ought to take care of that guy in your life before putting those boys in front of him, because that's the best thing you can do for them is have a great marriage.
I mean, it's difficult though, right? It's a difficult thing. It's even difficult as a man to put your wife before your kids, right? Unless you have concrete boundaries. Like my wife and I, before we talked, right? There's conversations that, Vanessa and I had before we got married that were incredibly important. And I think part of that's the benefit of getting married at 30 instead of married at 20.
Yeah.
Part of it's being right, with God before, right before marriage makes a big impact, right? And though for me, a lot of those conversations were had. I said, like, look, here's the boundaries of what is very important to me, and we had a lot of these conversations. One is like, look, me before your family, right, was a very important conversation for her, being a Latina and having a large Hispanic family. I mean, like, before COVID, a random, easy birthday was 60 to 70 people, and during COVID, our pod, we would have called it, right? Yes, in California you had pods. I know Texas you had barbecues, right? Where our pod, was about 15 people, with
Yeah.
all kids about the same age, and we stayed, pretty close knit on it. And I don't really worry about those things as much, but there's a lot of people who do, and we don't need to
Yeah.
dive down that rabbit hole yet. But so for us, though, one of the other ones though was, is that translated into us before our children. And that
Mhm.
is something like we stick to really
Yep.
hardcore. And it's something as simple as like, my sons in the morning will come and jump in bed with us, right? But they're not allowed to sleep with us at night, right? We
Yep.
we don't do that, because a marital bed's for a marital bed. There's a purpose
Yeah.
for that marital bed, and it's not to have children in it, right? And
Yep.
and so, like, with my wife, I said, I want to be intimate every single day, right? And that's something that's important to me. And that was something we talked about before marriage, before
Yep.
we even got down that path. And I said, like, if these things don't work for you, like, let's not continue down a
Yeah.
pointless journey, And I'll tell you, I remember being in Florida, and I'm trying to remember the city I was in, but I was in Florida at an event I was speaking at, and my wife and I were having a conversation, and we got to this point where there was a conflict between, I think, her mother, and her, right, and something they were doing, and me and her relationship, right. And it was the only time I ever gave my wife a, what do you call it, an ultimatum, right? And the whole history of our it's the only ultimatum, I think, like, where it was like I had to give an ultimatum, right? And I was like, look, it's me before your family. And it's not about your mom. It's not about individual things. And I knew her. I actually met her mom before my wife. Her mom and I. She's our first investor in our REIT. We have an amazing relationship. But in that situation, it was like, me before your family. Decide.
Yep.
And I was like, it's like, we're engaged. We're gonna get married. This is a concrete decision that can't, like, this is. And now, 11 years later, that's is still a prevalent conversation. But I'll tell you, it's difficult. It's difficult because there's times where her father and I don't get along, right? Because we have very different beliefs. I'm believe in medical rights, right? I believe if you want to go get vaccinated. That's your right. And if I don't want to, leave
Yeah.
me alone. It's my right not to. He thinks
Yep.
that's irresponsible, and I said, well, in my mind, you don't know the science and you don't know all the processes behind it. Trust me, there's
Yep.
absolutely no chance you've done a deeper dive into it than I have. And so, but it's fascinating. Like, I just respect his right to do what he wants to do. But I believe that's, a non-traditional California belief, but we'll see. Newsom's getting recalled. People forget that Reagan and Schwarzenegger were on the red side, right? So, people forget it wasn't that long ago since California was a red state. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Well,
it's
and you know
interesting,
what?
but
We look at, in case anybody's tuning in late and they're like, what are these guys talking about marriage and relationship? I thought this was a business show. You have to understand that it's the same things that make business work that make a relationship work. And that is, you have to be committed. You have to be committed to each other. You have to be committed to your business. You have to be open in communication. You mentioned the other book, the Great Communicators, and it's a book not about communication directly, but about people who were great communicators and are great communicators. Still, a lot of those people are still alive today, and some of them are from history, and like Churchill and Abraham Lincoln. But you got to have those things where you have that communication open. You got to have it when you're building a business. You've got multiple employees. You have to be open with those employees and be able to have a great communication with them, or they're not going to do a great job. And our responsibility as the leader, whether it's the leader in our family or the leader in our business, is to set the example and the door to be open. And hey, you could come in and ask me how to do this, whatever it is. Now, you may not agree with my answer. And if that's the case, then you need to step back for a second and go, okay, who's the boss and who's the employee, or who signs my check? And it's okay that we're not always going to agree on everything. And I'm going to listen. I tell my contractors this all the time. I'm like, look, if you see something that you think that I can do better, or you have a better idea, stop me and tell me. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to agree with you, but I want to hear it. And I've gotten some incredible ideas from contractors through the years. And most of the time, they're like, well, some people aren't open to that, and a few are. And I said, well, I'm always open to that because it makes me a better investor.
Like with my team, I have a clear cut rule. Like if I say this is how it's going to be done, if I say this is what I want, this is what I want, then I want it done that way, and I want it done to a T that way, and I want it done as best as you can in your humanly possible ability to do that, right? And if you're not going to do that way, then you better come to me. You better have a discussion. We better figure out why you feel like there's a better way. And then if I still decide it's going to be done that way, it needs to be done that way. But I'm always open, right? It's like somebody, people all the time to me say like, hey, Dutch, can I send you this deal? Or Dutch, can I do that? Right. And I'm like on a podcast, and I know this, I have thousands and thousands of people watch it. I've never in my entire life can think of a time where someone said, can I send you a real estate deal? And I said, no. Right now, it might have got sent and someone took a quick look at it before me, right, to see if it was good. I might have took a look at it and said no, it's not a good deal, right? Because it's just as important to say no, something's not a good deal, as it says to say yes to good deals. But at the same time, I've never said no, right? And people are like, well, what kind of real estate do you do? Well, I'm like, tax liens, tax deeds. That's just one acquisition method, right? Wholesaling, that's one acquisition method. Subject to one acquisition, seller finance. All these are acquisition. All these foreclosures, pre-foreclosures, they're all acquisition methods, right? It's just a method that's a part of our business. It's not actually. That's like a piece of knowledge or a tool, right? It's actually not methodology into why we buy or how we buy. And real estate investors understand that, right? But there's a lot of people who haven't been down enough dark holes to fully understand. Like the economy determines what method you're going to use to do real estate.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what a lot of people don't get is their strategy and tactics. And real estate is your strategy. It's my strategy. Now, the tactics under that are just the things you were mentioning. Am I doing a flip? Am I doing foreclosure? Am I doing multifamily? Am I doing tax? Those are strategies. Those are tactics underneath the strategy. But when I look at it, I may have 8 or 10 tactics going on at any one time, but the strategy is real estate. And so you look at that, and I agree 100% with you, but you're spot on when you say the economy dictates what's going on. You'll never find in the economy where at all times real estate, all forms of real estate is up or all forms of real estate are down. It's kind of like the balance scales of justice. When one side is up and the other side. So when flips and the retail market has been like crazy, the rental market tends to be soft. Well, then things start to change, and we will see a change. And I'm starting to see the underpinnings of that already. Even as crazy as the market is right now, we're starting to see the underpinnings change, that we would have had a turn in the real estate market, in the retail residential market already, had it not have been for COVID and the foreclosure moratorium. Had that not happened, we'd already had that. The market can't stay hot forever. We've had an incredibly long run. We are due for the market to cool off. And for those of you that are, don't get freaked out about that if you're listening to it, because what happens is, so you go back to when this run started. This run started here in Texas, started at the end of 2012. Most everywhere by the time we got into the first quarter, second quarter of 2013, the market was on the run, and it was taking off. So when prices start to drop, and they can drop dramatically, but they're not going to drop back to where they were in the end of 2012 or 2013. It's just not going to happen. It's only happened once, and that was during the
other part of that is inflation oversees part of that drop as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think that is real fascinating about real estate right now is that, the American dollar is not backed by gold, right? It's not backed by anything real other than the word of our government, right?
Yeah. And ink on paper.
Yeah. And so for me, there is some games to be had and games to be played, right? And we have to pay attention to those games that are being played through the politicians, through the World Bank, through the American Treasury, through, all kinds of different places, right? And so I think there's a lot of awareness. I mean, actually 2020, it got hard to do real estate as an investor for a small window because lenders, butts all puckered, right? And they got scared, and it was about a 6 month, window where the financing's part of that business. Actually, real estate wasn't that hard, but the financing part of it was hard for a little period of time. But we doubled down and invested harder during that time than we had in a long time, because we were built since '08, because I cut my teeth, started in '06, '07, and then really hit it, after '08, '09 is where I really, started to understand, real estate.
Nice.
So I've been building the whole time waiting for the next '08, right? And I've, been preparing and arranging capital and raising different things, right? There's a reason why we're very cash heavy right now and ready for the next window, because that's, the window where you win tremendously.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a shadow inventory coming from the banks again. I think there's a big gap before they allow the foreclosures to come out. But I think the county foreclosures, will also come out at a faster pace because of the tax liens and deeds and those kind of things. And so there's just a lot of different things that are happening, but it's a fun time, because literally from 2019, I already thought we were going to hurt the first bubble, right? So we were going into COVID, right into 20, right? I had done some videos like, there's a bubble coming right now, everybody be prepared. And then COVID hit, and like, okay, well, that made me right, but that made me right because of the pandemic, not right because the real estate, it popped, a small pop, right? And then it relaunched itself. So it's a fascinating time from a real estate standpoint. When do you think, let me ask you this, I've never been an office guy. I've never been invested into office space. It's never been my thing. But when it's low, right, is always the best time to invest into anything.
Sure,
So,
absolutely.
So right now, I think there's tens of millions, if not even a billion, in square footage that's vacant, that's being paid for, right? So companies are vacant, like you have medical billing. Because we're actively looking, because of our expansion, new offices right now. And I was in a medical billing, really, really beautiful A-class property the other day, where they had a medical billing, which typically isn't where medical billing would be. And they, had 100,000 square feet that they had leased, that they were looking to, sublease out, a 5-year sublease, which is a really long sublease. They were looking to sublease because all 100,000 square feet of people are now working at home. And so for me, I think there's a bubble. Office has slowed, but it hasn't gone down, as far as from a valuation. I mean, people are still selling them at 5 and 6 caps all day long. And commercial is a little bit different because, if you pay a 5 or 6 cap. But then I started diving deeper, and I was finding that there were some big companies that literally about every 3 or 4 years were buying office space from each other. And I was like, well, they're preventing a bubble that way for themselves. You know what I mean? And I was looking, they're like 50% occupancy and different things. So when do you think that bubble's coming?
Well, we're somewhat into it with how many people are at home. And there's been so much speculation and written about the fact that we're probably not ever going to go back to the workplace at the same level that we were at. That there's a ton of people and a ton of companies that have realized that we can have people work from home and it worked just fine. And so that being the case, let's not have that additional overhead. Let's let them work from home. And so, there may be 20%, 30% of the people that before COVID worked in an office that'll be working from home from now on. And that's fine. And that's going to create
another 10%,
the opportunity.
Another 10% who will never want to work again, or 5%.
Yeah.
And that's
a different conversation.
Yeah.
But you're looking at that's going to create a realignment, a readjustment on commercial property. And we're going to see some higher vacancies. We're going to see square footage rates either stabilize and just go flat, or likely they're going to go down. And it's always like with any piece of real estate, it is when the opportunity strikes, it's what am I going to do with this piece of property once I acquire it? So when I'm looking at an office building, whether you're looking at the whole building, in this case, like you could be looking at a floor or a couple of floors or something, and doing a master sublease out of. I did that for many years, and it was a great deal for me. And I'm always keeping an eye out for an opportunity like that again. But what you're looking at is, can I get in it super cheap? Can I get in it in such a fashion, at such a dollar amount, that then I can go to somebody who's maybe paying 25, 28, $30 for A grade premium a foot, and I can go to them and say, hey, I can put you in this at $18. And it's the same quality property, but it's because where we came in at. And if you can do that, and companies will move for those kind of numbers. They'll figure out, hey, we can do something else with that property. We'll get out of it. We'll let our attorneys fight out of it or whatever. We'll come over here and be in your building. And of course, we're looking at the same thing. We're looking at 5 and 10-year leases whenever we do that kind of thing. But it's always, am I buying it at the right number? If I can get control of it at the right number, then I've got opportunity. And so one of the great things I love about real estate investors as a group is we are more visionary than most business people out there, because we see things like an empty mall and figure out what can be done with it. And that's a space right there that, there's just malls all over our country that are vacant right now. They're not going to come back as a mall because that retail environment has changed. Amazon.
It's fascinating though, because there's those exist, right? You go any major city in America, they exist. But then as well, there are malls that are 5 times busier than they've ever been in the history of their business. And so it's like this exchanging dynamic. It's like when COVID first hit, right? Our investors freaked out. Like people just freaked out, right? And
everybody did.
Yeah, and I, for me, I immediately, we did a COVID-19 amendment to the SEC. We did it immediately to offer a guarantee. First time we'd ever offered a guarantee with our REIT. And for me, I just said, like, let me just try and stabilize this a little bit. Like I know we're fine. I know we're gonna be fine. But I need my investors to be comfortable with being fine too. And so I did that COVID-19 amendment. But reality is like we had a number of people freak out. Then we also had a bunch of people who doubled down, and invested more with us. And so there's just like this weird exchange that's going on, even where like, I think like for me, my people want to work from the office. Like they also want flex. They want freedom, right? They want to be able to spend an extra day working from home because actually for some of them, they know it helps them concentrate, but they also need the synergy of the office environment too. And then I had people during COVID where I was like, look, work from home. If you want to work from home, come to the office. You want to come off, make your own choice. You're an adult, right? Make the choice for you and your family and those kind of things. And I had a ton of people that just came, they didn't want to work from home. And so I think there's that balance for a lot of people too, because they don't have an environment where it's comfortable to work from home, so there's those exchanges. And so, but then when there's exchanges, there's new things that open up in very, very different ways. And it takes that creative mind, right, to be able to recognize those exchanges. Like to me, like back in the day, I remember teaching a course because I had done this on a self-storage and a couple of apartments, right? I taught a master lease option purchase, course where basically, you lease this is for them, not for you. I know, but you lease the property for the amount of income it makes to the existing owner. Then you ramp up the income. Now you can justify purchasing it for a better price than they would have previously gotten. Plus, then banks will finance you better. So it's this kind of cool strategy. It takes being an absolute master at the game to be able to do it, right? And that's one of the reasons I stopped teaching it like nationally, was because I just felt like it wasn't fair to a common person to sell them on this dream that it takes them being like an extraordinarily high level to be able to master it, right? And I try to teach specific techniques to people, right, that I know that everyday people can do, right? I mean, I'll share the more advanced knowledge and stuff with people too, because they want to. It's their freedom. I mean, one of the guys who did a master lease to this day, I'll never forget it, right? His name was John Stevens, was an autistic guy, right? And he did 3 of them, and he never stopped, right? And like not, and I'm not talking like barely, like you wouldn't recognize he had autism. No, you knew he had autism, right? It was definitely, and then the crazy part was another autistic student that came through the seminars. His name was Henry. The two of them met and they started working at it together, right? And so like
nice.
But at the same time, that was a really advanced. So with the offices right now, I'm like, well, can I lease for $1 a square foot and resell for $2 a square foot? And like, could I lease, $150,000, 150,000 square feet, at $1 a square foot, and a lot of people was like, well, that's not a common game. I wouldn't go and teach that to everybody in the world, because I'm going to tell you, you're going to go most people don't have a 150,000 for 6 months to be able to put at risk before they're
Yeah.
able to lease
Yeah.
out at $2 a square foot. But I'm also, that's just me tinkering, right? It's not actually something I think I'm going to go and
Well,
do, but my mind never stops the tinkering.
yeah. And there's what that says is that you're always looking at what the opportunities are. And so many times, and when I'm teaching classes, I try to warn people about getting too tunnel vision in real estate with a particular type of real estate. It's like, yeah, I want you to be focused on the niche that you're comfortable with and that you resonate with, because that's going to help you grow that. But as you get a solid footing in that, you're going to get the itch to try some other things, and always be cognizant of that, because there's more ways to do this game than you can imagine. And so it's great that you still do that, because that's what happens. We get out there, and when we look, I've been doing this thing almost 30 now, and I see
I met
more
you halfway
opportunity
through that.
today. Yeah, yep. And I see more opportunity now, and I get more excited. And it's kind of like, the more you learn about it, the more you realize that you don't know about it, the more there is to know about it. But you also just see opportunities that 10 years ago I wouldn't recognize. 5 years ago, I might not have recognized. And you see those today, and you see how it fits for you. That doesn't fit for everybody. But for you and I, things fit differently because we've been doing this a while. And every time you have a level of success, it's easier to recognize that next level. And so what is it that I want to do to be able to bump up and continue to scale my business? And I had mentioned to you, one of the things that we did is a guaranteed income program. And so we're doing some things right now that most people are, well, you can't say you can guarantee that. Well, oh yeah, I can. Not only can I, we've been doing it, and we can continue to do it. So
Well, diving down that rabbit hole, right? I think
Yep.
the day we started partnering on deals with people, right, was a day that I think the game began to change for our business. And it became, I no longer accepted, and this is why you did the guaranteed income. I
Yep.
guarantee it. And is I no longer accepted failure from my students who paid me money. Like I just wouldn't accept people who pay me, more than, like, it's one thing to go buy a course for $100 and you go and make a choice about whether you go and do something or not. But people who pay 10, 20, 30, 50, $100,000 for mentorship and education, not to make money, is just completely unacceptable. Right.
Yep.
And you shouldn't even have a program in my opinion, that charges people that kind of money unless they're going to make money. And I don't mean like going to make money, like maybe possibly 5% or 10% a year, even 20% to me is not acceptable, right? So for us, like with our inner circle, like 100%, right? Like you're going to make money, and if you don't, then we're gonna refund your money, and I'm gonna pat you on your butt and go away, and I think we
send you on your way.
And that's about 1 out of 100 for us, right? So for you, like guaranteed income, I love it because I know you took it to a different level of like what's acceptable numbers wise, and acceptable failure, acceptable, So go ahead.
Well, on our cash on cash ROI, 40% is our minimum yearly. And so when we're talking to clients on the front end, they're like, well, you can't do that, can you? I'm like, that's our floor. That's not our ceiling. That's not a goal we hope to hit and establish. That's our minimum. If it's not hitting 40, we pass on it. And like, well, you can't. And like, yeah, we can, because we know what we're doing. And we've got a ton of property that we can show you, that not hypothetical deals, properties that are in the portfolio. Here's the numbers on them. You do the math and tell me what the return is. And their eyes get big when they start doing that.
It's one of the reasons we became a REIT was to say, hey, look, like we're going to have audited financials. We're going to be SEC qualified. We're going to have, the fact checker stick that thumb where it doesn't belong and know whether or not, it's real or not. And so for me, like 40% sounds completely reasonable, because if you back that out from a cost standpoint, right, after you make the 40% return, right, we made 36.7 last year. That was 2020, and then the last 12 months, I think we're at like 35% for the last 12 months. And so I can definitely see, 40%, in an individual deal. If you can't make 40%, you're just not doing it right.
Yeah. And that's all it is we get inside their head and we take out the bad stuff that keeps the blinders on them and say, open up to the possibility of, first of all, would you admit that you don't know everything about real estate? They're like, yeah, well, neither do I. But you know what? I know enough to be able to bring in these kind of returns. And so, we sit down and it's funny because you'll see them when they start and they're getting 40%, they're just like, oh my gosh, I never believed this world could exist. And 4 months later, they're like, look, this is 68%, but I think that the next one's going to be better. It's like, wow, you got greedy in a hurry. I like that.
Yeah,
So
or like
they,
it's fascinating because like when we first started our inner circle, it was me, right? I was the only one really, like truly doing fulfillment, and so we would do a joint venture and we would do a deal, and if they needed an update, I'd get a text and I'd shoot them back an update on it, right? And now like you look at like we use like Appfolio if you've heard of it, but it's a project management, real estate property management software, so they have access to a portal where they can go in and they can look at their deals and they get a monthly email update from one of our team and like different things. So then when I hear someone like complain about communication, I'm like, do you have any idea what it was like 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? Compared to the service you're getting today, or like the returns. Like, so when I first started doing tax liens and deeds, it was a year before you could clear title. It's just that's pretty common in that industry. And so most of the deals I did, 7 years ago with my investors, it was like, hey, look, this is a year-long deal. Granted, we bought it at 30 cents, right, or 40 cents on the dollar, but this is a year before we're going to be cleared to either, really leverage or do different things. And now, owning a title company and just different things that become a part of the game to make that, reality very different. And so now the other day, like someone was complaining that they were like in month 4 of a fix, right? And they're complaining about the amount of time that it's taking. And I'm like, just take a deep breath through that one and reset expectations and reset boundaries so that they can have a clear visual and understanding. Like if you're doing rehabs less than 6 months, then you're doing phenomenal, right? In today's world of permits. And I mean, even Fort Worth, it's a big city, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Even in Fort Worth, even though Texas has, no laws and you're just, all country bumpkins, but at the same time, no, there's a lot of permitting in Texas, and Fort Worth is as sophisticated a city as anywhere in the world. So it's pretty cool. You have to go through those journeys.
Yeah. And we get tickled because you and we've dealt with so many people that have been out there and they've gotten involved in what I refer to as the TV programs, meaning they got involved in real estate from watching somebody on TV. And guys that, and some of them are dear friends of mine and guys that I love and respect greatly. But we differ dramatically in the fact that they teach a lot of this get rich quick, and you can make $100,000 in the next 30 days with our program, and and
let's talk about wealth. What is wealth, right? So for me, wealth equals freedom to me. The more freedom you can buy in life, right? For me is as wealth is achieved, right? For me, the flipping of the house, the turning of a deal shortly, right, never created freedom. It created income for me,
right?
And so though in this moment there's a satisfaction with the turn, there's a satisfaction with the flip, but that's not wealth. And so as we began to stack assets, hold on to assets, I started to understand like the wealth game. And granted, if you're looking at what I have to get accomplished in the next 6 months, yeah, you probably need to flip. But if you're looking at what you're going to accomplish in the next 10 years of your life, in my opinion, you have to hold and you have to stack.
Absolutely.
What's your voice on it?
Well, when I teach clients, and this is how we build our own personal portfolio, is that, look, we're talking about 2 words here. We're talking about rich and wealth. And to get to wealth, you have to go through rich. Mm-hmm. Rich is a fat paycheck. Rich is flipping. Rich is wholesaling, where you get big money, fine. But wealth is passive income. Wealth is, you'll never get wealthy you can't do enough flips to get wealthy. You'll never get wealthy where it takes a constant, I've got to do this to get that check. You get wealthy by, okay, I did that to get that check. Now I've put that money into this vehicle, and this vehicle is spitting out income to me, whether I ever do anything else or not. And that's passive income. And that's what our guaranteed income program is about. That's what, when you look at multifamily, when you look at rental property, when you look at office buildings, that's what that's about, is building an asset base that is always putting out income. I only have to spend a certain amount of time and a certain amount of money on the front end, and then I get this income coming in on a monthly and a yearly basis from now on. And yeah, as I go through the year, I'm going to have a small amount of time that I'll have to go just make sure everything's okay. And most of the time, I'm just looking at that. I'm not there at the property. I may be talking to the property manager, but I am looking at the reports just to make sure everything's okay. And that takes a very small amount of time. A flip, which is, and we teach both strategies, and that they go hand in hand. Because for many people, what you have to do is you have to do the flip to get the big check to have the funds to be able to go start building the wealth side of your portfolio. And so we go through this process of this just mental understanding of this is rich, this is wealthy, and this is how we go from being rich to being wealthy. This is the plan and the path, and we'll do both of them. And we have to do both of them because the more money that you have to build your portfolio with, the faster it builds, the more wealth you create. And then am I in a position as that money starts, that passive money starts to come in, am I having to take that to live on, or can I now reinvest that and let that grow bigger and bigger and bigger? And that's what we try to get people to do. So we have them doing both. We have them doing flips to create the cash to be able to build a passive portfolio.
Yeah, and it's interesting. So for me, like I remember the day I had a breakthrough in the business when it came to, like, there was certain money breakthroughs for me, right? And I remember one of the breakthroughs. I remember I'm sitting. And I remember I was in a hotel room, and I think I'd flown in to meet with business partners, and we're having a meeting, and we're just talking about our portfolio. We're talking about things that we're doing, talking about real estate, talking about how we were doing things. And I said, every time I acquire a property, I am acquiring more cash. Right? I take $100,000 of cash to acquire another $100,000 in cash, right? Or I take $100,000 of cash to acquire a $400,000 property. Now I have $400,000 working for me, right? To create, a passive return from an equity standpoint, right? And so one of the things, I've looked at is cash flow, right? Balanced, because I never want to be in a dangerous cash flow position, right? But for me, at this point in time, our investors, we're probably in the next 12 months will achieve over 10 million, right, in appreciation equity, right, from our existing portfolio. And so, but that breakthrough had me started looking at the game differently. I said, if I'm going to spend this much time, right, acquiring property to acquire more capital, I said, I'm going to spend a lot more time working on acquiring more capital so I can acquire more property, so I can acquire more capital, right?
Yep.
And it's one's feeding the next, feeding the next, feeding the next, right? But then how can I also set up a situation where everybody's working towards the same goal? And so that was one of the other breakthroughs for me in my real estate game, was how do I take all of my mentees, right? All of the people that invest with us to help them, build their own real estate. How do I get us all working towards the same goal versus teaching them and then everybody working towards 452 different goals? But if you're working towards one united goal, what I've found is then even that passive effort of everybody working towards that goal is crazy more effort than any individual can ever put in themselves. And the storm that creates from a momentum standpoint was those are all, like, over the years have been really big breakthroughs for us, and I think within our mentees or our investors, right, that exist with us, I think there's those who work towards that goal, and I think those who work towards their own goal are those that put the two together and do both at the same time, right? But that part of it has been really massive for us as we stack that wealth, and so that equity play for us is very huge as we create this larger and larger equity gap, and between amount of original capital invested versus the amount of total equity that's been built and total equity that's been put at play. Now, how do we take that equity and put that equity to work, right? How do we make that equity produce more equity and without putting ourselves in a cash flow dangerous position, right? And so for us, like I look at like Elon Musk or I look at like Bezos, right? And their companies produce a buttload of cash, but at the same time, their wealth isn't cash, right? Their billions on top of billions is equity. It's stock equity. It's not income equity, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of, there's some things within that modeling that I look at, some things within that modeling I pay attention to as we go through it. And so, I spent a lot of time just observing what the billionaires do that are accessible to us. And it's not that I need to be them or I want to be like them. It's more I want to observe and understand them, because the more I understand what they're doing, the more I understand the different plays. Like I understand different, reasons why there's different units, right? One of the models I follow, there's a company out here called Wedgwood, which is a $1 billion flipper basically, right? And they have an insane amount of things, and they own their own title company, and they own their own real estate agency, and you have your own real estate agency. And so, I watch those things and I model. So how do you wage your cash flow versus equity, balance within what you're doing?
Yeah, there's an interesting, and one of the guys that I follow as a mentor is a guy named Dan Henry out of Florida, and gave one of the great explanations I've ever heard of that. And that was this. He said, look, for your income to go up, your bank account is going to go down. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, man, that's so simple and so spot on. It's so brilliant, because most people miss that. They want their income to go up, but they don't want to spend the money to do it. And we have to do that. Does it take money to make money? Yes, it does. Can you do that with other people's money? Yes, you can. But money changes hands somewhere. And so what we take a look at is when funds are coming in, what is that money costing us, either in time or in interest? What is it costing us to have access to those funds? Then how can I arbitrage that and still keep my minimum rate of return coming in? And so that's all the banks do. That's all credit card companies do. That's all mortgage companies do. That's all Bezos. That's all of these entities do. Is cash is created. There's a cost associated with creating that cash, and then that cash is reinvested, and we get to keep what's in the middle. And so that's just a basic arbitrage of money that's been going on since money's existed. It's always been, hey, I can get it for this and sell it to you for that. We've called it markup. We've called it retail. We've called it whatever. But it's the arbitrage of equity. It's the arbitrage of return.
And
that's what I'm looking
funny.
at.
I look at that concept too, and I discuss this, and this goes very counterproductive than a lot of traditional thought, right? So like the Dave Ramsey financial peace kind of thought and stuff, right? It's like, put 10% away, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter what phase in your life you are, put 10% away, right? And I agreed with that for a period of time. And then I started looking at, like, if someone only has, because we've talked at some really high level stuff today too, right? So, but let's say you're in the fight, right? Let's say, you got $5,000 that you have something to do with, right? You've been saving, you've been worked your butt off to put that $5,000 away, and you're in a financial position where, and I know a lot of financial experts, a lot of thought leaders would disagree with me with what I'm about to say, but I'd say don't invest it, right? And here's where I disagree with them. If all you've been able to save and put together is $5,000, I say invest it in your ability to make more money. And the reality is, for me, $5,000 even at a 40% return is $2,000 a year. $2,000 a year is not going to make an impact on your life. But if you can take that $5,000, you can expand your ability to earn. And now you can earn an extra $5,000 in the next 12 months, or you can earn an extra $10,000 in the next 12 months, right? Now with that expanded ability to earn, you're going to have more money to invest, and you can make that impact on investing. Now, there might be a point in time, well, I think I've capped out. I don't know how to expand, right, my ability to earn, which is something that you just haven't figured out yet, because there's always an ability to expand your ability to earn. But at the same time, if you feel like you're capped out, then that is definitely a point in time, then put it to work and invest it and have it working for you. And there is a point in time when you have to say, okay, I'm going to put something away and have it invested. But the reality is, if once you invest, you got to live without it. And that's the thing that a lot of people struggle with too, because they want to invest and then they want that money to live their lifestyle. And if you're retiring, yes, that's the whole philosophy. But outside of being retired and that being the philosophy, you need to invest and let it compound, because the compounding effect is where the magic happens. Your first time where it makes 40% really isn't going to change your life. Even with $1 million invested, if you go from $1 million to 1.4 million, does that really change your portfolio? No. But on the 10th cycle of that, the game has completely changed, and you have millions of dollars, right? Versus $1 million. Now the whole game has changed. And so, like, you have to live without impacting the compounding cycle. So those are some of my thoughts.
So when you say that on the 10th cycle,
yeah,
one of the things that a lot of people miss when they start looking at the cycles, and we take a ton of time in our classes to make sure that people are understanding this so they don't miss that compounding, is that, okay, so and let's take those numbers. Let's take $1 million at 40%, and here's 400 grand. We're not taking that 400 grand out. That 400 grand is staying in. So in cycle 2 or year 2, we're not investing another $1 million. Now we're investing 1.4, and we're getting that same 40% back. So now we're getting another 400,000 back off the $1 million.
Yeah.
Then we're getting 160 on that. So going into year 3, now we're
You're
at
almost
560.
at 2 million already. Yeah.
And you start looking at that, and you start looking at 8-10 years down the road of that, and
I always
the
tell
numbers
people
get
a simple basic is, if people just need to take an Excel spreadsheet, right? And if you don't know what an Excel spreadsheet is, Google Excel spreadsheet. Take a simple, right? Take an online class, right? Get yourself familiar with it if this is beyond that. But if it's not for you, take an Excel spreadsheet and just start compounding numbers, right? Do $1,000 times 10% for 30 years. Do $1,000 times 20% for 30 years. Do $1,000 times 30% for 20 years, right? Do $100,000 and do the same cycle, and then it'll mind blow you, right? How that money compounds. And I always say, our people that are just mind blown are the people that put in a chunk and then they put in more, like on a monthly, quarterly basis. They continue to kind of add to it, because then that compounding effect is ridiculous, right? It's already compounding, but then you're adding more fuel to the compound, and it's pretty amazing. Chemists are like, they're talking about compounding constantly. This is financial, isn't it? Yeah, it is. It's the same thing. Yeah, very cool.
Well, and that's that thing. Once you understand that, and that's the key, in my opinion, to becoming wealthy, is understanding how compound works, why it works, and then how do I play in that? So how do I if you can be flat broke right now, you can go out and wholesale a deal and come up with a few $1,000s. Then use that few $1,000s to get you a hard money loan to do a flip. Now you got $40,000, $50,000, $100,000. Then take that money and start looking at, now I want to go, I can either do another flip, which I would possibly say, but I'd likely suggest against, no, take that and go put it into something that's going to create passive income for you. Put it in a multifamily property or put it in a guaranteed income program, which teach you how to do that. Then start over again. Then go back, and you probably don't have to wholesale a deal the second time. You've got some experience now, and you can go straight to doing the flip the second time and get a hard money loan, and you can bring private money in to cover the down payment on the hard. And it's all mental. You and I are baseball guys, and I never hit anywhere near the height that you did in baseball.
Yeah, but you had an office in the center field of Arlington Park. So, I mean, come on now.
There's the, Yogi Bear, and I'm sure I'll screw the quote up, but basically it was, 80% of baseball is mental and the other half is all in your head. That's money. It's all here. That's one of the great lessons I got from my dad. My dad said, business is never good or bad out there. business is good or bad right here. And if it's good in here, it doesn't matter what's happening out there. Your business is going to be good. It also doesn't matter how good business may be going out in the world. If it's bad in your noggin, your business is going to be bad. And that has stuck with me. My dad's been gone for 15 years now. And long before he died, that has stuck with me. And it's one of those things that is a building block of your success in life.
So everybody, we're getting ready to be a wrap, and I want to say a few things. Number one of my most important things about our podcast, right? We say American entrepreneurialism, American rights, right? And these are things that are incredibly important to us. And for me, Bill is the epitome of both. And I don't do a lot of product promotion. I don't, we have a pretty big, education, information business. We don't promote other thought leaders. Just something we don't do, right? We believe in protecting and keeping our people. So for me to have Bill on, for me to have him share with all of you, just goes to my deep level of gratitude and respect for the impact, he makes on people's lives, makes on investors, makes on the world, right? Go buy his book, Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich, right? I know you can buy many different things with Bill, but go buy his book, right? Make him, be crazy, you guys make him a New York Times bestseller for a book he wrote 30 years ago. That'd be pretty insane, right? And at the same time, go buy his book. Those of you, who want to get, some really good, really solid real estate education, real estate mentorship, right? Cash financial mentorship, right? Go to secretstocashnow.net, secretstocashnow.net. We'll put those in the description below, but there's so much crap. There's so much BS out there. There's so much noise. And Bill and I had no plan, nothing, rehearsed. Actually, even before we started, I was like, let's not even start talking till we get on the podcast, because I just want it to be real. And we covered some just nasty good stuff today. So I love it. Bill, just crazy respect for your thoughts today. There's things that I took as check marks in my mind today as we talked, and appreciate your faith. It all starts there. It's people forget that I always say, sometimes I know I'm good, but I'm only good because of God, and I'm only and sometimes I'm not that good. And so a lot of the greatness comes from something more than that's me, and I think that's purposeful and reasonable. And I think in a world where sometimes people feel guilty for sharing that passion of that faith, I think that's an ugly world that isn't a world I would ever want to be in, right? And so it's super firm in my beliefs and super firm in Bill's, and I think it's a great place to finish. Go buy Bill's book. Go to the secretstocashnow.net, because if I don't say it again, then you'll forget to go do it. So go do it. But God bless, brother.
You'll do something fun real quick for about 20 seconds here.
Let's do it.
So you've got Dutch's contact info. Send him an email and say, hey, I want a copy of Bill's book, and I'll send you a digital copy for being on the podcast with us today. No cost, just to thank you for you being here with us, and Dutch, for your people for.
All right, well, let me tell them which email to send it to before I start getting emails all over the place. So send the email to Dutch@raddiversified.com, right? So everybody knows that's not Dutch's personal email. That is a customer service email that the team will take care of you, because I always learned a long time ago, if I'm playing middleman, stuff's going to get delayed, but my team will make sure you get taken care of. So send that to Dutch@raddiversified.com, which is our REIT that people invest with us in. And look, appreciate you, brother. But let's do it.
Yeah,
let's do it. I wanted them to go buy it. Now you're giving it to them for free. Come on, Bill.
Hey, I've got a new one coming out, so
good.
We'll get them hooked in on this one. They go buy the new one.
I'll tell you right now. I can walk the webcam over to my office right now, and Are You Dumb Enough to Be Rich sits on my bookshelf. So it's pretty amazing. Actually, one of my guys here, Buddy, one of the team that helps us put on the podcast, he actually said it's at my house right now. So I encourage my team to read from the library. So sweet. All right, brother. Talk soon.
Good seeing you. You bet. Bye now.
Bye.